Hey guys, Grumok here. Today I will be explaining how to play the Unholy DK in 5.4. If you want to skip ahead to a certain point in the video, click in the timestamp boxes to the side. Now if you are just getting into the spec or are looking to try it, you might wonder what it's all about. It's a unique spec. It combines a lot of dot and pet aspects along with a heavy mix of physical and spell damage. It can seem somewhat overly complex or clunky at first. It did for me as well for a time. Once you learn what to track and maybe on ideas how to track it, it actually is a very fluid spec that is simple while also giving you a bit of thinking and planning to do. So let's get into the talents. In Tier 1, Plague Leech is the best DPS pick, but it's a pain in the ass to do right, and if you don't do it right, it's a massive DPS decrease. So unless you're a robot, go with Roiling Blood, because it makes Pestilence and Unholy Blight trivial for spreading your diseases. Our Tier 2 pick is going to be AMZ. It's an awesome raid defensive cooldown. It's pretty much the only one that really has a use for you in PvE, but just plan it accordingly, because it only lasts a mere 3 seconds. For Tier 3, Death's Advance is our pick. Asphyxiate has its uses, however the passive speed boost and 6-second sprint is a DPS increase no matter the fight or situation. Tier 4 is our healing tier. Death Pact is the pick that you want here. Unlike Frost, your ghoul is always up, letting you use it anytime. The resources the others cost just aren't worth it. In Tier 5, all of our choices here are really close for Unholy. You can pick what you want, but Blood Tap gives the quote best. While you can just macro it in, I find Runic Empowerment easier and gives me better rune flow, but I would just try them and pick what you like the most. Now in Tier 6, all these have uses at times. Remorseless Winter also has some good uses somewhat often. Desecrated Ground, however, is far less often any use. Personally, I think Gorfine's Grasp is awesome far more than the other two. Not only does it help the tanks gather everything up, but since you can get everything so quickly, you and the entire raid can start doing a lot of AoE really fast. So let's get into the Glyphs. Now, as DPS DKs, there are 3 Glyphs that are mandatory and one that I would highly recommend. Glyph of AMS and Regenerative Magic, this is the one I recommend. Now these will be explained in the AMS part of the video, since AMS requires its own part. The other 2 mandatory ones are Glyph of Army of the Dead and Tranquil Grip. You want to be able to help group mobs without getting smashed in the face, while providing that awesome utility of gathering things up. And you don't want your ghouls smashing the boss in the face, taunting it off the tank, and then screwing up the tank. So, let's get into our stat priority. It's the same as a 2-hand Frost DK. You want Strength, Expertise, and Hit both to 7.5%, Crit, Mastery, and then Haste. Now, if you want to know what gems to use and how to reforge your gear exactly, there's a link below to Ask Mr. Robot. I would just use it because it makes it super easy. I'll put a picture of what to socket stuff. Pause if you want to look at, but I'm not going to explain it. Alright, so let's get into our priority. I'll first state that Unholy to me, unlike many, is not a ramp-up style of play, nor does it lack burst. Your ghoul can become X-formed quite quickly. Also, your gargoyle really freaking hurts. Gameplay will be at the end of the video, and a priority listing slide at the end of this section. From my explanation and the slide, it may still sound far more complex than it is. Hopefully the gameplay will help you if it does. Let's state the very core spells we use. Our core priority uses 6 spells. Scourge Strike, Death Coil, Festering Strike, Dark Transformation, Plague Strike, and/or Outbreak, and Soul Reaper. Let's start with our ghoul and how to deal with him. This is where the clunkiness seems to most often stem from. As Unholy, our Death Coils give a stack of Shadow Infusion. When used upon 5 stacks, we can use Dark X-Form to empower him into a monstrosity of uberness. A big problem most have is improper pooling of runic power. When your ghoul is about to drop out of his X form, we want to be able to have as much runic power as possible. However, don't let your runic power cap. We need to be able to get death coils out and our ghoul X formed ASAP and as often as we can. You must track these. Having no death coils off the bat when he drops often creates the idea that Unholy is clunky and that it doesn't have a fluid flow to it. AMS ties into this very heavily. I will explain it in the AMS part of the video as well. Now this is how I track these things. Do it however you desire. I use weak auras. Any similar add-on works fine. This is my death coil tracker depending on how much runic power. It will be a 1 or a 2 to tell me how many death coils I can fire. This is my near runic cap warning. This tracks my shadow infusion stacks. Lastly, this is the timer for my ghoul while he is X-formed. I will put a slide at the very end after the gameplay explaining my entire aura setup if you're interested. A timestamp at the beginning of the vid or in the description below will also be there. Onto our diseases and how Festering Strike fits in with them. As Unholy, our dots are much stronger, and like any DK, keep these up at all times. We have Outbreak, which is on a 1-minute cooldown that puts both of our diseases on for no resources. Festering Strike extends our diseases. Festering Strike uses 1 Frost and 1 Blood rune. These runes will then turn into Death runes that are usable on anything. Now this part I cannot find any 100% agreed upon method. Now personally, my Festering Strike icon here only appears when my Frost and Blood runes are not Death runes. Now this will become less of an issue as you gear up to the point of it never happening like it does for me. However, it is possible while doing this to not be able to keep your dots up until Outbreak is off cooldown. Now I will just use a Plague Strike, which applies both of them just like Outbreak, but uses 1 Unholy rune. Some say, other than my method, to no matter what, use Festering Strike to keep the dots up until Outbreak is usable again. However, I next to never have this happen to me, single target. So for me, using a Plague Strike, like, now and again in the fight isn't a big deal. I prefer my method, and I tried both. I didn't really see a difference between either, really, but I use so few Plague Strikes because I don't need to anyway. So I'll leave it to you. Now, our base rune dump, Scourge Strike, is the reason I not only like my method more, but think it's a better method. Scourge Strike hits harder than Festering Strike. It costs only 1 Unholy rune. As stated above, Festering Strike will turn the used Frost/Blood runes into Death runes usable on anything. So with using my Festering Strike method, you get twice as many Scourge Strikes for the cost of a Festering Strike with the Death runes. So as you gear, Outbreak not being up via my method pretty much almost goes away. Plus, in my opinion, the Unholy rune Plague Strike cost to apply the dots isn't that big of a deal, since the Unholy runes are just 2 out of the 6 that you use for Scourge Strike a lot. But that's just me. Our execute is Soul Reaper, which we only use at less than 35%. Now, Soul Reaper does not hit instantly. It has a gap before the big hit happens. I recommend you make an aura like this one right here to tell you when the boss is at 36%. So you can use it, and by the time it hits the boss will be at 35%, and that lets you sneak in an extra Soul Reaper. Here's the priority slide. Pause if you want to look at it. Alright, now on to AoE. Now for AoE as Unholy, we have 2 methods of this: Burst AoE and Sustained AoE. A priority slide will be after each type. Pause to look at them if you want. For Burst AoE, keep your diseases up either via Pestilence or Blood Boil with the Rolling Blood talent. Keep Death and Decay down. Your Ghoul X-formed as much as you can. Scourge Strike and Death Coil if you get a proc or need to avoid runic power capping. For Sustained AoE, keep your diseases up via Pestilence or Blood Boil with Rolling Blood. Keep Death and Decay down. Cast Festering Strike to turn the Blood and Frost runes into Death runes. Spam Blood Boil until you can't spam it anymore. And use Scourge Strike for any leftover Unholy runes. Now, let's get to the cooldowns. For Unholy, we have 4 straight-up DPS cooldowns. Gargoyle, Unholy Frenzy, Empower Rune Weapon, and Army of the Dead. Now, Gargoyle and Unholy Frenzy on, say, like Icy Vein, say, to keep them separate, you can really just macro them together. There's no reason to not to. I can't think of a situation where you would need your Goyle out without using another big cooldown like Unholy Frenzy. Also, while it's a DPS increase, saving Unholy Frenzy to stack with Bloodlust is so trivial that you don't really need to worry about it. Empower Rune Weapon instantly takes all your runes off cooldown, granting 25 runic power. Obviously, this is best when you have no runes. Like, an ideal time is right after you pull and dump all your runes, and while all your cooldowns and procs are still up, so that you can just get a whole nother circulation of runes with all those cooldowns up. Then we have Army of the Dead. This should always be casted before the pull. Ideally, you want a 10-second raid timer to cast, and then the last 5 seconds of that timer to have all your runes back up. But if a tank just pulls the boss without a timer, the start is still the best time. And for the loves of Thrall's Balls, please make sure you have the glyphs so they're not taunting everything. Alright, AMS. Now if you feel like you aren't doing very well, or how other DKs seem to do way more DPS, this is likely the problem. You don't use AMS to its full potential. AMS will absorb, with the glyph of AMS, all of the harmful spell damage up to a max of 50% of your health. AMS gives you runic power on the absorbed spell damage that it absorbs. The glyph also makes it so that if you do it right, you'll take no damage. Making it absorb all the damage grants you runic power much faster than if you don't have the glyph. The regenerative magic glyph also makes it so if your AMS did not absorb all that potentially could, it will give AMS a shorter cooldown based on how much more it could have absorbed. You need to be super aggressive with AMS. I can't express this enough, just how insanely good this is for a DPS cooldown. The extra runic power that you'll get over an entire fight gives you insanely more death coils, which obviously gives you more DPS from death coils, but also lets you get your pet up faster and more often. For example, when Garrosh does his Empowered Whirlwind, you pop AMS. You'll begin to get so much runic power that due to the global cooldown, you cannot actually fire them fast enough to not waste some of the potential runic power. Or on Norushan, the third guy in Siege of Orgrimmar, the Amalg's Beam can be run through with AMS up to give like instant 100 runic power. AMS has quite a short cooldown, and with the glyph when done right gives you a shit ton of runic power and you don't take any damage for standing and stuff. You want to look for shit to stand in. You must master this and it will make huge differences. Like if you just go to World of Logs and you find a DK that didn't generate a lot of runic power from an outside source and then look at, say, like one of mine, you will see, like, I had, like, 1,000 more runic power than he did. And obviously that's a lot of spells. And the fight I picked for the gameplay is to show mainly the single target rotation and, like, a easy example of why AMS is good, and I hope that helps you in the video. So I hope this helped you guys. Unholy definitely takes some practice, but often it seems way more complex than it is. My aura setup explanation slide is after the gameplay footage coming up. If you have any questions, issues with the stuff I stated, or feedback, please comment below. Thanks for watching my first guide, and have a good one, guys.